I'm trying to see if I can get a better background. Maybe I have to do with this.
Shruti, done with your evening tea and all?
Yeah, all done. Kids
Okay.
are settled. I just hope they don't budge in. They're
Okay.
fine. So everyone's logging in from home, isn't it now?
Yeah, most. In fact, we are also working in shift. So a couple of our faculty have gone back home, and a few of us are in college. So those who have
Yeah.
left, yeah, will be logging in a while.
Yeah, I guess it's the new way of life now.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. In 6 months, I haven't stepped out for work like since
Yeah.
March.
You've also been working from home. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah, mostly. But except for the evenings when we get to the restaurant, but otherwise, pretty
right.
much.
Yeah. Participants are still coming in, I guess.
Mevla, we can start in next 5 minutes.
Sure, sir. Yeah. Good afternoon, all our participants. Just give us another 5 minutes more before we begin. Did you manage the background, Shruti?
No, I think we just have to do with it.
Okay.
I haven't used Zoom much.
You can start, Mevla.
All right. Just a minute. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's topic for the webinar, Desi Gone Global, as a part of UDAAN, a launchpad for entrepreneurship, organized by ASSMS CHMCT Pune. I am Dr. Miola Fernandez, and I'll be a moderator for today's session, along with my colleague, Ms. Mohini Rasal. We have two amazing entrepreneurs who will be sharing their stories with us. You say what's special about these two? The fact that both are action takers and they are the living proof that the distance between you and everything you want is the amount of action taken. Let me begin by saying that it gives me immense pleasure, truly, to introduce Ms. Shruti Rosario on our platform for UDAAN today. She is not just a successful woman entrepreneur, but a very close friend as well, batchmate actually. Consultant and entrepreneur Shruti Rosario manages Jewel of India, an Indian restaurant in Canberra, Australia. An alumni of our very own AISSMS CHMCT, Shruti started her career with the Lalit in Mumbai in the food and beverage space. After a brief stint with the industry, she moved out into the IT world. In 2011, she and her banker husband, Shonan Rosario, started the first restaurant, Coastal Spice, in Pune. Coastal Spice was a home-style restaurant that specialized in seafood from the west coast of India. Shruti and Shonan then moved to Australia in 2013, where they stayed invested in the industry. In 2016, they took over the reins of Jewel of India. Jewel of India is an award-winning restaurant and caters to the Indian cravings of the people of Canberra. To its credit, Jewel of India has won the prestigious TripAdvisor Traveler's Choice Award 2020 and the Australian Good Food Guide 2020, as well as the Reader's Choice Award. Before I hand over to Shruti, if you have any questions for our speaker, please feel free to type it in the chat box. We'll be answering your questions at the end of the session. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ms. Shruti Rosario. Over to you, Shruti.
Thank you, Meola. Thank you for the kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. And like Meola said, it also gives me immense pleasure to be on this panel today to talk to you about my journey in the industry, out of the industry, and back into the industry. So I'm just going to start by giving you a bit of a background from what ahead of what Mehala said, and open it up for questions as and when you have any, and we'll talk about quite a few things today. Back to where Meola and I started actually in college. AISSM is 1999 batch we started. We wrapped up in 2003, and it was one of the best experience in life that I cherish all my life. And I'm so grateful to my alma mater for being with me all through my journey in and out of the industry. So as Miola said, after passing out, I took up my first placement, very excited, got through the first interview I gave in, and went into the industry. I started work at Lalit as a trainee captain in their Indian restaurant Baluchi, and I was a very good student, and Mayola can vouch for that. That I used to study really hard. However, when we went into the industry, you realize that everything that you studied in textbook is very different from what the industry has to offer you every day, standing there for 8 to 12 hours, and it was an amazing experience. But soon I realized that that was not something I could do to manage my family, as well as that was my first interest. So I moved out of the industry very early. Having said that, like they say, you can take a person out of the industry, but it's very hard to take 4 years of the industry out of the person. So wherever I went, the industry was always there backing up. And even if I wasn't in the industry, every job that I took was thanks to the industry. I always spoke about my experience during my studies, during my training, and my experience with working at the hotels. um, Life has strange ways to go about it. So 2011, my husband was in the insurance industry, and 9 and 10 insurance industry started to decline, and we went back to what our core was, and we said, okay, what do we do? Let's start our restaurant, our own restaurant. And we then started Coastal Spice 2010, end of 2010, early 11. Now, Coastal Spice could be, it was actually as small as a restaurant could get. It was really small. And if all of you are from Pune, and I'm from Pune too, so it was in Karvenagar, a very, very small restaurant. But the amount of experience we got working there was immense. So, how did we decide on Coastal Spice? We decided that we do what we do best. Being from Bangalore and my husband having a Goan background, we said, what could be better than seafood? So we said, let's go ahead and do what we do best and cook seafood for our people. So we did Coastal Spice for 2 years, learned a lot, very different range of work, working in a five-star hotel versus starting up a really small restaurant of your own with one chef. There's a lot of learnings that come from it. It does give you an immense pleasure, though, to do something of your own, even if it is of a very small scale. And that's where we realized that surviving in the industry needs skills, but more than anything, it needs passion. And I think my husband had found his passion there, and he was like, "This is it. I'm just loving it." And we had plans for Coastal Prize, but life had its own plan for us. We got our PR, and we bag and baggage moved out of India to Australia exactly 7 years ago, actually. And industry at our rescue again, because as soon as we landed, we were like looking for jobs. And one thing I have to say, out of the country, hospitality is one of the most straightforward jobs that you can pick up. If you are trained chef, nothing like it. You will easily pick up, starting with casual opportunities to, if you're really good, to permanent and long lasting opportunities will always come your way. But if you're not in the kitchen, always there's front office and food and beverage roles in plenty. That's actually a foot in the door. In I can talk about Australia for sure. It is a foot in the door. You can always get jobs. You may start really small, but there's always plenty of jobs in the industry. So that's when the industry came to our rescue. And we were fortunate enough that my uncle had a few restaurants in Canberra. So we didn't go to the bigger places in Australia. We came straight to Canberra. Canberra is the capital of the country, but very small in comparison to Sydney or Melbourne. And the general industry opportunities were fairly less, but the hospitality industry, as any other place, was thriving. So my husband got into working at one of the food outlets in a mall. Now, food court in the mall is a small outlet, but it's interesting how they run it in this country. There's one or two people who do everything in that place, right from scrubbing the floors to cooking to serving the guests. So it was that's where reality hit. That's where the difficultness in the entire scheme of things was started to crop up. That's where the struggle began. From cooking, I used to go. I remember my kids were very young, and I used to go out to help him, because there used to be just one person in the afternoon cooking 20 kilos of butter chicken on one range, and then 10 kilos of dal makhni, literally every day. And we could cook butter chicken in our sleep 100%. Like, it's that much of food was getting sold every day. But the challenge there was that one or two people did all of the work there. But I think that was the hardest part of the journey, but the most it shaped us the most. It actually, that 2 years that we worked in that small outlet really shaped our life in terms of what the industry could offer us, and what we could do in the industry. So we did that for 2 years, and then Jewel of India was on sale. So we literally put everything we had, and instead of buying a house, we went ahead and bought this restaurant. And that is our baby. Actually, it is a fairly old baby. So Jewel of India has been there for about 18 years before we took up. So it was a very established place. Positive of it was that we had an existing client base, but there were a few challenges that came our way. So might want to just stop. I think I did a lot of fast talk there. I might just stop and ask if there's any particular questions, and then I plan to talk about the challenges and some strategies that we took to manage Joel. Did you?
Yeah, Shruti, we do have a question. It says, why not every businessman becomes an entrepreneur? So if you want to answer this now or take it later, it's on you.
Sure. I might park it, and I have a few things to talk about actually being an entrepreneur towards the end. So I might park this for now.
Surely, we'll take it towards the end then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sure. So from there, so like I said, Jewel of India was a business that we took up, and we bought it. It was established, and we had a few different type of challenges. When you're starting a restaurant from scratch, there's a different type of challenges, because then you're doing everything there. You're putting the menu together. You're making the business plan for it. But when you buy an existing restaurant, one of the biggest challenges is to maintain its reputation, and we bought a restaurant that was doing pretty well. So to maintain the reputation of it, to keep the food and service quality as is, and also then to establish our own brand. And that's where the entrepreneurship comes in, which is different from running the business, because the business was established, and our inputs to the business were more entrepreneurial, because we were like bringing our flavor to it, we're bringing our passion into the game. And that was challenging, because people were used to a few things that were happening in the restaurant, and everything that good or bad with the restaurant came with it. So one of the biggest challenges was for us to move away from the previous owner's brand and establish our own brand there. And we tried experimenting with the menu. We said, okay, let's bring in something fusion. Now, if you have the chance, have a look at jewelofIndia.com.au. You will see the website, and you will see everything that the restaurant has to offer. And you will immediately pick that it is a very standard menu. There is butter chicken on the menu. There is dal makhani on the menu. There is palak paneer, which they call saag paneer here, and very basic stuff on the menu. And we were like, okay, let's try and experiment, and we bring in something new. We'll bring in something fusion like. We'll expand the menu. But it very quickly struck us that people had that butter chicken for over 18 years, and they didn't want anything else on the menu. No matter what we put on the menu, they would come back to doing butter chicken and dal makhni. So in 6 months time, we had made up our mind. We were like, okay, we are doing dal makhni, we are doing palak paneer, we are doing butter chicken, but we are doing the best of it. So we resigned to the fact that we couldn't make changes in the menu. We couldn't play around with much of the food that's being served, because the existing clients loved what they ate. So then from there on, our goal was to give them the best butter chicken. I keep saying it to all the people who start newer restaurants in Canberra. I said, I always say that we are not ashamed of selling butter chicken, because we do it the best, and we stuck with all the basic stuff that our Indian restaurant can offer in a background where Indian food is fairly new to people. And we stuck to really the basic. You will find aloo matar on the menu. You will find aloo gobi on the menu, which is really basic, but of really great quality. And our customers really love it, and they come back for more of it. And I think that's another challenge, because as an entrepreneur, you're full of excitement. You want to do new stuff. You want to try new concepts, but it's very important to see if the market is ready for that. And I think that's one of the key differences to be running a business, because and doing something entrepreneurial, because that very flavor of your own, that thing that you want to bring in, is not always possible. And you have to play around. You have to play your game around what the customer needs are, because no matter what, I mean, we have restaurants that do molecular gastronomy. They do, but you can't beat the scale when you have like 100 people in the restaurant back to back asking for the same kind of food. You can't move them from having a whole bowl full of butter chicken to doing a beautiful one portion butter chicken, very amazingly plated. It just doesn't work in this market. I mean, it just doesn't work in the market that Jewel is in. If there are restaurants who do that, but they're very different from ours. So I think understanding where your restaurant is, which location it is in, what people are expecting out of the restaurant in that particular scenario, is also something that you doesn't always go your way, but I think you got to have a good mix of that. The other challenge that we had is these days, I guess every restaurateur will have this challenge of reviews. People are very, very brutal, and they can leave you reviews right, left, and center. So the very first 6 months as soon as we bought the restaurant, 6 months, people had started to see that, management had changed. That itself has an impact on people's mind that, okay, someone else is running it now. So, it's there's always a quick conclusion made out of it, and based on it you have reviews coming in, and it would really bog me down personally. I would be very upset if I saw a negative review. What happens in that scenario is you would dwell on one negative review that comes in, and you fail to see like there's four good ones there against one bad, and you start taking that negative reviews so seriously that it actually starts affecting you as a restaurant owner. And I think I was terrible at that. I have had days where I've cried because and been so angry that, you know, I did everything on this table, and I served him the best, and I was so nice to him, and we even gave them complimentary puppet, but you know, this is the reviews. So I realized that learning to deal with reviews is absolute necessity in today's world, because people have choice. So it's not like you're the only restaurant there. People do have choice, and that actually allows them to say out their mind. There's enough and more social media platforms for them to kind of sham you. However, if what we also realized is if our guests have a positive experience, they don't go and put it on the reviews. You know, it's not always put out there. So one of the things that we did to work on it was kind of speak to the guest and ask them to put a review if they enjoyed it. I mean, if they come and say at the counter that, oh, we really enjoyed it, we won't hesitate to tell them, if you really enjoyed it, go ahead and feel free to give us a review. And that's when you start building that. You try to make that, you make your customers understand that yes, they can talk about the negatives, and you're always open to criticism, but you would like them to kind of talk about you in the nice way if they really enjoyed the experience. So those were the challenges in terms of running an established restaurant that we faced. Um, the other main challenge, and I should mention this one, is retaining staff, because when you buy an existing restaurant, there's a lot of staff that doesn't know your working style and would probably choose to stay or to go. And if you're not a chef, if you're not a hands-on kitchen person, it becomes extremely hard to manage the restaurant, because you're then at the mercy of people who cook for you. So one of the things that we had to do straight away is Shannon was on the pan. So in like 3 months after managing the front, and Mayola will be surely amused, because I'm sure you've never seen him in that light.
I am. I was just smiling at that part itself.
Yeah,
Really.
you should see how he learned to do the tandoor. Now, these are the things like, because, and we run it as a family, and hence we have that thing of I manage the front, he manages the kitchen in case of requirement. But it is amazing how we got our hands dirty, got into the kitchen, learned to do the tandoor, learned to make the naans, learned to make everything that was on the menu. And that's something that is very essential when you're in the game, because there are times when, because the staffing is quite lean, you can't have a kitchen full of chefs. So you kind of with one or two chefs, and if on a given day they don't turn up, they're sick or something, you can always have casual people come in, but that actually affects the quality of food that goes out. So it's better as soon as possible you kind of get your hands ready, and we learned it that way. And those are the times when I feel really bad that I didn't give back enough in terms of years to the industry, and I moved out very quick, because had I known I would be running a restaurant, I would have given more time in the industry. But I think Shannon really picked up all the work there in terms of the kitchen, and that's how we managed our challenges in the first 6-8 months. Was very challenging. I'll leave it out for questions again.
Shruti, plenty of questions and all very interesting ones. I'll begin with one which is very, very relevant at the moment. It says, can you please differentiate between being an entrepreneur in two different countries, with Coastal Spice in Pune and Jewel of India in Australia?
One of the very striking difference is the amount you can play around with the menu if you're not a kitchen person yourself in India versus playing around with that in Australia. Because in India, if you have a lot of staff, you can afford to have kitchen staff, you can afford to have people who come and do that. If you put in an idea, you can have people to work on it. But I think when you have a restaurant here, and if you're not a trained staff chef, then it becomes extremely hard to put your ideas into action. So I think um, putting ideas into action, if you're in the kitchen yourself, is much easier in a country like Australia, because you have amazing amount of um, uh, how do I say, the ingredients are plenty, the amount you can experiment is a lot, and the overlapping fusion structure of the entire industry is also very vast here. Versus back in India, you can play around a lot. If for us, I personally felt that was a very striking difference, where we had it was more like running a business there, because it was, you had people to do everything, and you just literally orchestrated everything. It wasn't that as much as it was our baby, we didn't feel the pull of it. The passion was like more, you could start it and then you could hire people. But here it was like you have to do everything by yourself, and I think that's the most bigger difference that I personally experienced across countries.
Shruti, another question which a lot of our students want to know at the moment, are the rules for visa, especially post the COVID situation, are they expected to change? And what advice would you also be giving our young budding chefs?
Um, with regards to the visa, as of my recent knowledge, I think they're still doing a lot of visas for the regional Australia, which actually means that you come and live in not the biggest cities, but smaller places around the country, and they have conditions around. I think 2 years. I'm not a very much visa expert, but they have some conditions around staying in regional Australia. If you're coming as a skilled resource, if you're coming as a student, of course, there's completely different set of rules. If you're coming as a student, you're allowed to work 20 hours a week, and there's plenty of opportunities in the kitchen or in food and beverage service. As a student, it's a very different ball game, where you could we have a lot of students who come in as hospitality students, and who are learning to do the tandoor with us, and they come in as interns and work with us. But if you're coming as a skilled resource, then I think it's more restricted.
Okay, another one, Shruti, what are the mistakes that will make you lose your business or not allow you to go forward in your business?
Um, I think one of the biggest mistakes would be taking your customers for granted. At no stage would you do that, and you should do that. And that is because there is choice, even if it's a small place like Canberra. It's we have 68 Indian restaurants here, and Jewel of India is number two. And on it, we are also in the top 20 of all restaurants in Canberra, which about, I think there's about 700 plus restaurants. So if you look at those numbers, there's ample choice for the customer today. I mean, there's enough and more. If, like, for example, in the last 4 years after we took on Jewel, we've seen likes of Shiv Sagar's coming in here, which we never thought that we would have restaurants of that type, where you get either a pav bhaji or a bhel puri at the restaurant. It was all those things were really unheard of. And like I said, when we were deciding on the menu for Jewel, we wanted to do all sorts of things, but our customer base was like, no, we don't appreciate that. We want what we get, because it also depends on what kind of clientele you have. So we have a lot of because it's one of the older restaurants, we have a lot of Australian clientele rather than Indian people coming in. So which actually means that they're still not very known. They still don't relate to a bhel puri or a dosa as much as they relate to butter chicken. So it really depends on what the customer needs. But I think the biggest mistake would be that if you think you're going well for a couple of months, if you see, and if you become complacent and you take it for granted that, oh, we are here for 18 years and we'll always be there, I think that is a big stepping stone for failure. Because my husband says all the time, like Shannon would always say that it's like a stage. Every day is a performance. In terms of cooking, the food should be of great quality. In terms of hospitality, it has to be the best. And every day it has to be a masterpiece performance, because if the same guest comes twice in a week, he should have the same experience. Because if you let that down, then that's where people kind of, when they come in for the second time and they don't find the same experience, that's when I think you lose that client. So that's I think that's the biggest mistake if you become complacent.
Did you guys, Shruti, have hiccups initially with, I do agree that Jewel of India has been there for a long period of time, but do you all also go ahead and alter the cuisine or rather the taste of the food depending upon the palate, as Australians are not very inclined towards spicy food or, with color, etc.
It's actually the other way around. We, like I said, we just stuck to what the original butter chicken is. So if you order, it's never going to be sweet. I mean, it is going to be medium spicy, and you will be surprised how spicy the vindaloo at Jewel is. And people really relish it. They kind of accept it. In fact, if it's not spicy enough, they would question it. They would be like, oh, can you suggest a more spicier dish, because we're here to eat Indian food. And they quite understand. It's not like they don't understand. So and they're very very adapting. So I mean, at least Canberra people have started knowing Indian food and have started enjoying. We have places that do thalis in Canberra, and people have enjoyed it and accepted it. So I think the Australian public is also becoming very very aware of Indian food and the kind of options it can offer you.
Shruti, what do you really enjoy? Running a restaurant in India or in Australia, and why?
Um, I think both of it, and I think it's more the satisfaction of like it's an everyday event. Every day people come in and they enjoy the food, and I think when you have the most satisfying things for me are like when you have birthdays and milestones that are celebrated at your restaurant, then you feel like you're part of their life. And there's one person who comes to Jewel from the last 25 years, and every year he comes for his birthday. And it's amazing how they've accepted the previous owners, and then they now come to us and they enjoy that. And I think being part of people's life through food is the thing that we enjoy the most.
Shruti, what legal challenges did you face while you started running the business? Could you just throw some light on that also?
Mm, in terms of legal, I don't think there's challenges as such. There's pretty clear guidelines of what you're expected, and if you are sticking to those guidelines, then you're absolutely fine. I mean, there's in fact, working around legal challenges as the fairly straightforward part of running the business in Australia. Like you need food license, you need a food safety supervisor at your restaurant. You need someone who's done the course for responsible service of alcohol if you're serving alcohol. You need your exhaust kitchen. There's a lot of guidelines around how the kitchen should be cleaned up, how many times in a year do you clean the exhausts in your kitchen, how you maintain your tandoors. All of that have very clearly outlined guidelines. And I think if we just stick by them and follow them, it's fairly straightforward. We regularly have health officers come and visit us, and especially in COVID times now, I think every alternate Friday we have the health officers visiting us and checking on premises. And as long as you're following the guidelines, they make it very easy for you to do business.
Just coming back to the next question, actually, with regards to COVID, what are the changes you guys have made in Jewel of India now to ensure that the health and safety of both, the employees and your guests is taken care of?
Right. So the rule of 4 square meter per person applies across the globe, and it applies to us as well. So 1.5 meters distance from each person, and which has actually brought down our capacity by one fourth. Excuse me. So we're running on really small numbers in terms of table at the moment. And what we've also, as per regulations applied, is the registration of people. So people are expected to sign in using a code when they come in, and there's sanitizer available to them, and pretty much they do that routine of sanitizing and signing in and coming in. The COVID's been fairly kind to us, at least in Canberra. So, but the restrictions are still quite rigid. So we're really running at one fourth of the capacity. And although our takeaways and deliveries have improved, but the deliveries also are contactless. So you kind of knock at the door, leave it at the door, and they will pick it up. You don't have one-to-one interaction. We try to minimize that as much as possible.
How successful are entrepreneurs in Australia compared to countries like India, America, or even Japan?
Um, it really depends from person to person, and that's where I think the passion is, because it is a hard game. It is not an easy game. It is something that you're committing your 24 hours of the day to. I mean, as much as there's a reason why both of us are not 100% in the restaurant, because it really consumes you, and if you the only thing that keeps it going is the passion. I mean, that's my true belief. You need to have the passion, because there are going to be rough days, there are going to be good days, there are going to be days when you're waiting for a guest to come in, and there are going to be days where you're not able to handle the crowd. So the only thing that keeps you going is the passion, and irrespective of which country, I think that is the only thing that will keep you, at least in my opinion. Because when you lose that passion, when you start doing it like a business just to make money, it never works out. I mean, you probably will still make the money, but that's not the because you're dealing with, I feel it's a very it's an industry where you're dealing with people, and the only thing that can keep it going is the passion. Everything else will follow. I mean, if you have that relationship with your customers, if you serve that quality of food, if you're consistent,
Oh yeah. No, I have created with all the pointers. Huh.
Sorry. Yeah, Shruti.
yeah. So I think irrespective of the country, passion will keep you going.
That's true. Okay, Shruti, now that have ample of experience in working again in India as well as overseas, Australia specifically, what would you say? Where did you kind of garner more respect? Where did you get more respect, according to you? More in India, or was it more in Australia? And people also want to know why. If you could just throw some light on that.
Um, It might be true to the question. I think here in Australia we've garnered a lot of respect, and I think that's not because of any other reason than the fact that uh, it it's. I think it is quite. A challenging thing to do. I mean, to start up and run a restaurant and manage the restaurant, considering um, I mean, people come to a place like Australia to have work-life balance. I mean, easily you can find a 9 to 5 job, and easily you can settle in having all the weekends to yourself and traveling the country, and doing all things that any other 9 to 5 job can offer you. But when you decide to run a restaurant, you can't leave it for a minute. Like Shonan prides in saying, my restaurant's open 365 days of the year, and every night he's open and he's there. We haven't taken a holiday in like 2 years now. So I think the choice that you make to run a restaurant in a country like Australia, where you can easily settle in for a easy work-life balanced kind of a life, I think that is a choice that you make, and the time and effort and passion that you give to the industry is a choice that you make. And I think with that in mind, you garner a lot of respect because people who come, even the Indians who come to the restaurant, know that it's a hard work, and they know that it's not easy to run a restaurant in a country like this, and I think that's where a lot of the respect comes from.
We still have a few moments more for a couple of questions. Would anyone still like to post some on the chat? Just a moment, Shruti.
Shruti, I'd like to say it's such a pleasure to see you speaking as an entrepreneur, and makes me really proud.
Thank
I
you, ma'am.
remember you as a very sincere student who took up responsibilities and led the juniors in various functions that we organized. And I have that picture of you in front of my eyes, and it's wonderful to see you doing so well.
Thank you, ma'am. And like I said, at every point, ma'am, I'm so grateful that the college has always been in touch, always been, helpful. I remember when we started the restaurant, and I have to say this, I wrote to all the teachers, and all the teachers had such good encouragement to say that, it's all good, it will all be fine, and everyone really encouraged us. I remember Krishnamurthy ma'am actually worked out, and she sent me a note on how to do the marketing for it, and I was so touched. I was like, I'm so grateful that I have teachers who kind of constantly have our back. So thank you very much.
It's we're in a very happy state to see students like you doing so well and having you over to talk to our current students. So sometime maybe we'll get an opportunity to visit. I don't know when.
It would be a pleasure. It would absolutely
Yes.
be a pleasure.
Thank you.
Shruti, we have another question. Sorry. Yeah. How would you retain your staff during this pandemic? What extra efforts would you take to motivate them? Keeping in mind that since we have lesser number of guests coming into the restaurant and everybody is basically pretty much crushed. So any extra efforts that you've taken?
Two things we did, and I think that means a lot to us as business owners. One is we made sure that their salaries go on time, and that is extremely important because that's what they rely on. But the other thing we did is, because the restaurant isn't very busy in the mornings, considering there's not much tables in, we allowed our staff to come only in the evenings, so they get some time for themselves. And because otherwise, on a normal times, it's extremely busy. They work really hard. So from that perspective, we've kind of managed their shifts in a way that they do lesser hours with us. So that gives them a bit of break and gives them some time to kind of use for themselves.
Also, Shruti, which of the famous preparation of coastal spice have you incorporated any of the menu from coastal spice to Jewel of India? Do you have anything in the transition?
So what we've done is, like I said before, we couldn't play around much with the menu in the restaurant. But what we've done is we've incorporated a lot of those items in the catering menu that we do. So whenever there's more traditional Goan or more traditional Mangalorean catering, or if anyone's specifically asking for South Indian dishes, we do include them in the catering menu. So they do have an option, if they cater with us, to go beyond the regular menu and try out new items.
Another question we have, Shruti, from our YouTube agenda. How many times do Australians go out for lunch or dinner in a week, approximately, roughly?
Oh, they do a lot. They do a lot. Like, they love their food, and they're very, very encouraging of cuisines other than their own. So it's just standard. So for lunch, we have lunch boxes, which is really very lunch, not very expensive, and they can choose between one or two curries with their rice and pick up a naan. So a lot of people choose that for lunch. So they at least I think once or twice a week easily they would eat out.
Is there a different market, Shruti, for different types of cuisines in India? Like the South Indian cuisine, or is it mainly just the North Indian or fusion is what is more appreciated there?
So there are restaurants that do South Indian cuisines, like they do. We have a restaurant that does dosas for us, and however, they can't completely go away from the butter chicken and saag and the basics that the Australians always know as Indian food. So they have to keep that on the menu, but they could go a bit experimenting in terms of. But they haven't gone more beyond South Indian food. They're still quite conservative in what they kind of serve. But I think they're open. It just depends on what, like, I think from a jewel perspective, we wouldn't do anything very innovative or anything more than what we already do. But if we had to start something else, one of the things that we have on our mind is a breakfast outlet, because what we've realized is when you want to go out for breakfast in the morning, there's hardly any Indian options available. So most of the Indian restaurants start lunch hour, and you might get a dosa, but you won't get it at 8 in the morning. So that's on our mind. So to do the base, like to do a poha and vada sambar and all the ones that we really love to go out and have breakfast, we'd like to do it for the community who would kind of experiment with that kind of food.
We just have one last question, Shruti. Someone wants to know your reason for leaving India when you already had established a restaurant here itself.
Personally, I think I have had family in Australia. So my mom's side of the family has been, and it's always been something that I wanted to do. And from a long-term perspective, and this is a question I always keep asking myself, for my own self, has it been a great move, or is it more from my children's perspective? And I think I keep leaning on the answer that it's more from my family perspective. Like there's ample opportunities for the children, and they get much more opportunities than we get. And I think that was my major reason to move out.
Shruti, thank you so very much. We've had a very engaging, a very interesting, and for giving us a lot of information, especially for our participants and the students who are present here today with us. Thank you once again, and we hope that Jewel of India gives you a lot of more accolades as compared to what you already have, and all the best for the future. Thank you so much, Shruti.
Very much, Meola. Do visit our website and do look at our Facebook page, and happy to take any feedback. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next speaker for today is Mr. Sriharsh Naik. He's already here. I now hand over to Ms. Mohini Rasal.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I, Mohini Rasal, take this opportunity to introduce our next speaker for the day, Mr. Sriharsh Naik. Welcome, sir, and thank you so much for joining with us today. Before I move on with the introduction, I would like to mention that Mr. Sriharsh is associated with our institute in the sense that his wife, Ms. Seema, has been alumni of our college, that is AISSMS CHMCT. Mr. Sriharsh has completed his 3 years diploma in hospitality management and catering operations from Rizvi College in Mumbai. He moved to Isle of Man, United Kingdom in the year 2003 for his post-graduation at the Institute of Hospitality Management and English Studies. Mr. Sriharsh started off his career at a leading 4-star hotel and country club, and thereafter moved to a hotel chain where he was managing 2 promenade hotels. He has over 10 years of hospitality work experience in UK before shifting to entrepreneurship. Mr. Sriharsh opened his first venture, Curries and Steaks, in Douglas, Isle of Man in the year 2013. He wanted to give the island a taste and authenticity of Indian cuisine. Sir has also started a coffee shop and ice cream parlor in the year 2014 and is currently working on a new project called as Street Kitchen, which should open by November 2020. We wish him all the success for his new project. Thank you. And I would like to now hand over the session to Mr. Sriharsh. Over to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, first of all, for Prachi and Sumit for asking me to do this. Again, I'm really grateful for you to do that. My journey started in Mumbai in the year 1999 after doing my 12th from Khalsa College in Mumbai. I was looking at what fields to get into. And one of the fields which was coming up was hospitality and catering. So doing the inquiries then and finding out more details and what to do, what not to do, I then registered myself at Rizvi College. We done the 3 years diploma there in hospitality management and catering operations. After finishing there, I joined Hyatt Regency, which is at the airport. I was with the pre-opening team. I qualified as a chef. I was working in the pre-opening team in the banqueting kitchen that time. During the same time, my friends, they had moved to the island. They were doing the post-graduation, and they asked me that I should be joining them, which at the time we thought, okay, well, it's good, it will be good, but then the prospects in India were better as well at that time. Finally, after speaking to my family, I decided that, okay, well, let's take that step, and I decided to come here to the Isle of Man. Coming to the island was completely different. Coming from a city like Mumbai, because and say for instance from India, because we are so busy, the pace of life is so different. Coming to the island, it's a very small island. It's again, the pace of life is a lot slower here. So when we first moved here, I wasn't sure whether I did the right move to come here. Then eventually we had to find a job. We all did, and I found myself a part-time job at the leading four-star hotel that we had on the island, called the Mount Murray Hotel and Country Club. It had 90 bedrooms. It had a restaurant which seated 150 covers. It had a bar and bistro which had 80 covers. It had a function room for 300 covers. It had another small function room which was 70 covers, and it had three meeting rooms. So it was a really big place. So I mean, I couldn't believe when I first joined there. I mean, I approached the hotel for a job in the kitchen because that is what I qualified in. But at that time, they did not have anything for me in the kitchen. So all they could offer me was in food and beverage, which again, yes, you do learn that in the catering college, but well, when I left, you don't. I only had my industrial training with me in food and beverage. Apart from that, nothing else. So I was a bit hesitant to take up that role, but saying that, well, I needed a job and I had to take that job. I had no option, which I did. I was very introvert at first. I wasn't able to speak in front of people. I was very shy. Again, something which I think most of us felt the same when we came to the UK, because it was a different country, different people. It's not the same culture, so you don't know how to react in a way. You would behave the same with your friends, but when you go out in the restaurant, in the hotel, you would be different. It was quite different for us then. But eventually I came out of the shell, and I started working in the restaurant. Then in probably 6 months time, working part-time, I was offered a supervisory level, which was quite strange because, again, as I said, well, it had never happened before. I was only here on the island for the first 9 months, and I was supposed to go to the UK to do my further studies, my internship, and complete the course. The course was for 18 months. But then the hotel where I was working, they offered me a full-time job. Um, I was quite surprised because they offered me a junior duty manager level, which was really great. Like, it was again from, I mean, that time, all you were thinking was you needed a good job, you needed to work on your visa and your extension. That was the key. So I did take up that job, and then again, as well, growing through the ranks. I started in February 2003, and by the end of March 2007, I was food and beverage manager, ready to move on to my next next job opportunity, which I had, which was an ops manager. So we got, again, the Isle of Man is the road racing capital of the world. We got the famous TT races. So we have plenty of hotels because The Isle of Man's population is like 85,000 people, but during TT 2 weeks of June, it actually doubles. That's how many people come over. So that's how many hotels and bed spaces we have. So the next move was to move on, and it was a perfect job opportunity for me. There was a 64-bedroom hotel. They offered me the job of an operations manager, leading on to the general manager, which I did take. And as I said, I was then managing the hotel by the end of 2009. By 2011, the group had another hotel, which was a 67-bedroom hotel called the Chester House. So when I left the company in 2013, I had a good food and beverage experience behind me, and hospital and hotel management experience, I would say, for just over 10 years. So then coming into the starting a business now, again coming from Bombay, and my dad's a businessman, so he always kept on asking me that, what are you going to do? Are you going to do a job? I mean, every time I would go to India or he would come here, he would be like, are you going to, because he's seen me work. I mean, I was doing 65 hours a week, and he's seen me do that. So he was always keen to know whether is that what I wanted to do. Did I always want to work for someone? Am I going to start my own business? And I was like, well, yes, because the job was good, the job satisfaction was good. I said, well, doing the functions and the wedding receptions, and you are so important in running the day and making sure that day is smooth for someone's special day, if it makes sense. They are relying on you, so you have to, again, it's all down to your organization. You're organizing the staff, running the floor, how you do it. So yeah, it's that job satisfaction which I got. It was priceless. So I said to my dad, well, yes, I'm very happy at what I'm doing, because it gives me great satisfaction. But he was still keen that, well, I think you should start your own business. So then 2013 was the right opportunity, when one of the chefs who was here in another Indian restaurant, he approached me. Should we start a new restaurant? And I said, well, okay, it sounds good. It is something which, yes, I wanted to have, but not like, I didn't expect it to be there after 10 years working in hospitality over here. I always wanted to, but still. So then I was approached. I said, yes, well, let's do this. But then again, we were thinking of what do we do? How do we name it? What kind of food are we going to do? Because Indian restaurants in the UK, they have been classified as curry houses. So we wanted to make sure that we are going to be a restaurant serving Indian food. We're not a curry house. We wanted to be different. Again, most of them are the menus are done in such a way. It's mostly for the British palate. Something which we wanted to be different there as well. People travel. We realize that people travel. People are more adventurous. They have been to India. They know what food is. So we thought, well, why don't we actually start a proper Indian restaurant, giving them the authentic Indian taste and flavors. Also, because we were we start okay. So coming back to the name, sorry. So as I was working in the hotels, when when guests would ask you where's good to eat and what do we do, where do we go out, and you'd always recommend the next hotel around you or restaurant next to you, there would always be someone in the group who would not like it. So then when we were thinking of the name, we thought about curries and steaks, because okay, well, obviously it is an Indian restaurant, so let's do curries, and then steaks, because if someone who doesn't like a curry, they can always have the option of having a steak. And that's why we come up with the name as curries and steaks. And I think the concept, we didn't realize how it would take off, but it took off really, really well. In fact, it took off extremely well, because I mean, we did not expect, but we sell around 20% steaks. When you look at the average covers in the whole week, we would do 20% of that would be steaks, which is great. And yeah, so that's where the concept and the name came from. And as I said, most of the restaurants are Bangladeshis and Pakistanis, so their cuisine is very, very different. They use a lot of food coloring. It's just completely different to our food. So we decided, okay, so we have to stand out. So okay, so we began with the name. The name had to be different, and people criticized the name that, initially, and they were like, well, if you can't spell curries right, well, how are you going to have your food right? So we thought, well, you need to come in and you need to try, because again, that's what makes us different. One of the key things which I always had was, again, Shruti's mentioned this before. I was watching the presentation before. It's very, very important that you are as good as your last meal, whether be it the food, be it the service. People remember, and they will always come back if they get the same food standard consistency every single time. And that is what we pride ourselves in. And that is what we kept doing, that, we wanted to make sure that, again, going back, restaurants here, most of the Indian restaurants here, um, the service was just so standard. There was no warmth, there was no, you didn't feel that they appreciated you being there. Okay, you were there having a meal, but for them, it was just like, yeah, that's, you're just another customer. Whereas for me, it was like, if someone's coming to the restaurant, you have to make that experience something which they will remember, and they will talk about it to their friends and the family, that, oh, we went there, we really enjoyed it, we really looked after. And that is what, we stand out for. Yeah, so that's when queries happened. Then again, in 2014, another friend of mine, he approached me because there was an opportunity to have a coffee shop and an ice cream parlor. And again, it was just, when I first moved to the island. This was on the south of the island where we lived, and it's a beautiful location. It's right by the beach, and it would be stupid enough to not have something right at the beach. So I thought, well, why not have it? It's a perfect opportunity. It had come to me, and I could not say no. So that's when we started Scoops. Again, it's just a basic coffee shop serving your cappuccinos, your lattes. And then we tied up with Davison's, which is a local brand of ice cream. They use all the local produce, the Manx butter, the cream. Again, no food coloring. That is very important. Same as the restaurant, we've not used any food coloring for the last over 7 years. We not. Scoops was the same. Davison's, they only use natural food coloring as such. Um, so we started Scoops, and that was it. So yeah, it's been good. There has been lots and lots of challenges, and it will always be there. I don't think having a business, you can you can relax anytime. You are always working. Okay, I was working 65 hours probably when I was working in the hotels, but I'm working more now because it's my own business. And I think, again, as Shruti mentioned before, one thing you cannot do is be complacent. You cannot be complacent because the competition is out there every single day. You are only as good as your last meal. If people don't find something right, then they're not going to come back. Because what happens is, again, we are on a very, very small island. It's not like India where we have the sheer footfall. In India, I think we can still get away with it. I'm not saying you should do, but I think in India, if you do serve a mediocre meal, you can get away with it because you have the sheer number of people walking through the door. That does not happen on the Isle of Man, where it's a small community, where people talk. Most of the thing is done by word of mouth and on social media nowadays, which is very, again, it is a positive, but it also has its negative effects. It does not help because a lot of people are not comfortable to confront or to complain in a restaurant, and they find it very, very easy to go online and just sit behind the keyboard and put it all online. It does not give you a chance to rectify your mistakes. I'm not saying we don't do mistakes. Everyone does. Everyone's got a bad day. I mean, the server might have a bad day. I might send a meal. I mean, I'm in the kitchen now, so I might send a meal out, which again, in a rush. I'm not saying it would not be 100%. I try my best, but sometimes it might not be. But until and unless I get the feedback straight away, there's not much I can do after. And this is what I find is the most difficult bit, is people not telling us when they are in the restaurant and going online, or and speaking. And it's the word of mouth again. As I said, I keep saying the same thing, but yes, it is very important on a small island how you manage your business and how you run your business. So yeah, it's been 17 years on the Isle of Man. all of them in hospitality industry. It has been good. There has been ups and downs. There has been challenges, and I think that's something which always will be there. I think for the students, I can only advise that, well, what you learn in college, I think get your foundation strong. That is what we did. The professors, the teachers, whatever they tell us, I think they are experienced, and that is what they tell us. You take that forward with you, it will help you. Hard work, dedication, maintaining your standards, it's very, very important. You have to be consistent, you have to be persistent, you have to keep doing things all the time at the same standard, because that is what will make you different, and that is what will allow you to leave your mark and help you progress in the industry. It is tough, it is very difficult. I mean, especially now with the whole COVID situation, and it's around the whole world, how hospitality industry is affected, because obviously there's nothing happening, there's no events, people aren't having any functions, there's no get-togethers, there's no concerts. So it is a big effect on us. And how do we come out of it? That's a different thing. I think it will be a while before everything gets back to normal. But saying that, if we stick to the basics, and if we continue with the hard work, I think we can definitely move on, and we can reach places where we want to be. That is what I did when I was here. I mean, we had around over 100 students at the same time as me, and we were all looking for jobs. And obviously there was something which I did in my interview got me the job. When I was working at Mount Murray, again, there was 4 or 5 other friends of mine who were there, and it was, I'm not saying they didn't work hard or they didn't have any standards or anything, but saying that, well, obviously there was something a little bit different that for me that actually gave me my next promotion and for me to do my job. And once I got that, I think that was success. Once I got that and I got the flavor of that, I thought I was greedy and I wanted more. And that's why I kept repeating the same thing. I kept, with my hard work, I kept doing what I did best, was consistently doing and giving good service. Again, coming back to the restaurant, I started off in the restaurant as a front of the house manager because I had the chef. But then after 3 years, the chef decided to move on because he wanted to start his own place, which is fine. Again, people move on, staff move on. That is another challenge you will have in your business. Staff always move on. They're not going to stay with you forever. You have to get that. You really have to understand that. So okay, the chef moved on, and then I had no choice. But then, as Shruti said, well, one of them is in the front and the other one's in the kitchen. At that time, I had to go in the kitchen. I had never done tandoor in my life before, but I had to learn. I had to pick up on things. And now we are producing one of the best Indian dishes, I think, as well. Curries and steaks. We started with the fusion food on the Isle of Man. There's been on the island, we're surrounded by sea. And that was something which is also missing on the island and generally in the UK restaurants. I'm not talking about Michelin star restaurants and all, because they always have seafood on the menu, but generic Indian restaurants in the UK, they don't have a seafood menu, which I thought, being on the island, we should be promoting more, because we got some amazing local scallops and lots of other stuff which we can use. So then that is what I introduced. We always do different things in the restaurant. We did surf and turf, where because we were curries and steaks, we started marinating the steaks in curries, and then cooking it in the tandoori oven. Then we started doing surf and turf, where we would add in lobster to that, which again was unheard of. So yeah, so these are the different things. And coming back to the next venture, which is again something which I had in my mind from last year, was to start a street food restaurant, because people, as I said, people travel. People are very, very adventurous. They love food, and they always look for street food wherever they go, whether it's India, Bangkok, Thailand, Vietnam. A lot of British people travel through the world, and all they're looking for is light bites, small tasters here and there. So when at Curries and Steaks, when we started doing the tasting menus, I realized that that is something which would go really well. So I was thinking about the concept. I had it in my mind, but then again, I did not have a place that time. Again, in March this year, I did find a place, but that's when COVID hit. So everything was on the back burner because we weren't sure which way we were going to go. We were quite lucky on the Isle of Man because of the so small. We are actually we closed the borders, so only people who live on the island are allowed to come back. You're not allowed to come to the island if you want to visit the island at the minute. We've had no cases in the community for over 110 days, which is great. So everything was back to normal from the 15th of June. Um, so yeah, so then the landlord approached me saying, well, are you still interested? Do you still want the place? Which I said yes. So we started the work on it last month. Again, it will be street kitchen. So what I want to introduce is our vada pav, our bhel puri. I mean, the chaat that we have, idli sambar, something which is completely different. Um, People have heard of it, never tried it because they're not sure about it, and they've only seen it, in programs online or on television and stuff. So yeah, so it's been well received because these are the items which I have tried in the restaurant on specials boards. And I said people have taken to that and they were like, wow, this is really good. This is different. I would have never ordered if it was on the menu, but because it is on the specials board, we're trying it out. And that is what I thought that, okay, well, it's now time that we take the next step. Again, it's a risk, it's a challenge, as is with any business. But yes, I'm prepared for that. And hopefully by the end of this month, beginning of November, we should be sorry, end of October, beginning of November, we should be open with street kitchen. So yeah, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And we have few questions that for you. So the first question is, how do you feel about the cost comparison with regards to ingredients or setting up the business? So if you could
Uh,
throw some light on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, with regards to cost comparison, I only worked in India for a few months before I came here. So I never actually got to know how the cost would be to set up a restaurant there. The cost comparison here is like, okay, well, you do know that um, you will have to have it's like the normal thing is, okay, if you're going for an alcohol license, there is a fixed cost. If you're going to take a premises on, the landlord's going to ask you for a deposit. Now it is up to you how you negotiate, whether the landlord is asking for a 3-month deposit, for a month deposit. So yeah, so you have to keep these things in mind. Are you going to upgrade your kitchen? What sort of equipment you're going to need? Again, when we were opening the restaurant, Curries and Steaks and Scoops, you always ask the environmental health officer to come in and have a look, get them in first, get their advice of what needs doing, because you don't want to open something and then them coming in and saying to you, well, this isn't going to work, or you're not complying with this, so you don't want to open and then close. So you rather make sure everything's ready first and then you open. I mean, as Shruti mentioned, and it is the same here as well, that the insurance companies, they will not insure you if you do not give a certificate for the canopy clearing and it's the exhaust clearance and stuff. So I think these are very, very important costs, which you have to always bear in mind when you are opening the business. Staffing, I think staffing is always, it is one of the costs, because you employ people beforehand, you have to train them, you have to make them understand how you want to work, before you open. It's not like, it is different when the restaurants open already and you take on a new staff. But when it's a pre-opening team, if you're taking a new team on, then you have to understand whether they all gel together, they all work together. Don't forget, a pre-opening team, there is no customers. So it is very, very important to understand the strength and weaknesses of the other members of the team. And when I say strength and weaknesses is, okay, well, not everyone works at the same level as you think you would or they would. But your 100% might be different to my 100%. I might not be as good as you are, but again, I'm still a very, very important member of the team. One thing which I realize in the UK is, every single job is very important, whether it be a waiter, whether it be a pot washer, a basic entry level chef to a head chef. They're all as important as each other, and saying that, coming back to the cost, when you have a new team, when you're trying to make them work together before even a customers come in, there is cost involved because you still have to have them for the entire shift, for whatever, how many ever hours you need them for the week, for them to work together. And yeah, so yeah, there is cost, but then you can always project these things, you know, um, and then yeah, you should be.
Thank you, sir. We have our next question, and it says, "What is the APC of your restaurant?"
Well, I mean, again, you can, I would say between £25 and £30, which is, I think in Indian, it's around 2,500 rupees. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is, how does the annual TT race affect the business, especially the time before COVID?
Right. So TT is just completely different. I mean, something which, okay, so when I was working in the hotels and I was only working, I never had a chance to watch the races. My very, very first year when I was in college, I did go, I did get up really early because, as I said, the island population doubles up. Yeah. So there was like, there's literally another 75, 80,000 people on the island. And there are few famous spots where you go in and you have to watch the races. So I, with one of my other friends who was at the college that time, we decided, okay, we'll go at 6 o'clock in the morning because you need to catch the place. You need to sit down and, get your tiffin boxes, lunches, whatever. And you have to sit there all day if you want to watch the race from the best spot. Unfortunately, it rained on that day. So I wasn't able to watch anything. So after that day, I never went again until like probably 4 years ago. That was the first time ever I seen a race, and it was terrific. So when you say, well, how was it different? The restaurant's constantly full. You don't take any bookings, because it is very, very difficult to guarantee someone that, okay, well, I will have a table for you at that time. It's like, yeah, and it's every single restaurant. My restaurant, Curries and Steak, seats 54 seats, so you got 54 covers. Bearing in mind, well, we all want to eat between, say, 6:30 and 8 o'clock. So at that time, all of them seats will be taken. I don't know if I'm going to have a starter, main course, dessert, or if I'm only going to have a main course, or if I'm just going to have two courses. So it's very, very difficult to predict when the next customer you can take the next customer in. So we don't take any bookings. We usually just let people know that, okay, well, it's first come, first serve. We'll try and serve you as soon as possible. If you think someone's finished and they're just waiting, you might request them politely if they wouldn't mind leaving because the next table is ready to come in. So yeah, but then comparing this year, we had no TT. It was very, very difficult because, as I said, some of the businesses, they just rely on TT completely. I mean, you would make, in the 2 weeks time, you would at least make around £40,000, which is really good, which can be 2 winter months, sometime. Yeah. So it has affected a lot of people. We were quite lucky with COVID. When COVID happened, we were in lockdown when TT was supposed to happen. We quickly adapted to deliveries. Okay, although we did do deliveries before COVID as well, but I think Indian food and Chinese food, they are best when you put a lid on. When you have a home delivery, I think they come best. I don't think a pizza or a burger travels very well when you're having a takeaway delivery. That is where we gained during the lockdown because, as I said, well, we were literally doing around 80 to 100 covers a night. Which is great. I mean, and now that the restaurants are reopened, we're not even doing that in a week on deliveries. That's how much the big drop is, because people have the choice to come out. They can, and there's other restaurants So it's not to forget, as I said, competition. There's always competition. You cannot be complacent. So I'm constantly battling to do something different. There's more and more Indian restaurants opening. I mean, at the minute in Douglas alone, and now Douglas is big as it is, but then we still have 8 Indian restaurants. Now it might sound, well, it's only 8. It's not a lot. But then for the population, what we have, you cannot forget the eating out population does not change. The people who have got the disposable cash, that does not change. They just have more options to go out. They just have more restaurants to go out. Saying that, I do understand that people cannot have Indian food every night. I mean, well, we do, but then not everyone's going to come into a restaurant to eat Indian food every single night. And that is why when different restaurants open up, it's a competition. Doesn't matter which one it is, whether it's an Italian, Chinese, or Mediterranean, it is still competition. So we are looking forward for TT next year. With the situation in England, we really don't think it's going to be possible. But then fingers crossed, let's see. Let's see.
Thank you, sir. And moving on to the next question. It says, will you be changing the flavors of chaat you are planning to introduce as per the taste of people in the UK? Or will you completely go desi? Because some of our chaats can be quite spicy. And is there a market segment that will accept the complete desi taste?
Yes. Now, yes, the chart, whenever we've done a chart, it's completely desi. Now, saying that, well, I've not actually made, I'm not saying I've done it to British palate, but then, I mean, when we've introduced, we've had bhel puri on, we've had samosa chaat, we've done sev puri, and we've done ragda patties. Now, as I said, well, whenever doing these 4 dishes, I've made sure that the spice content is not too much. At the same time, there's a little bit of kick at the back. I mean, there have been, okay, there's Indians who come in and they love the chaat, so they will always ask us, can you make it spicy, which we can, so it can always be modified as per your taste. But then when we are serving it as a for the generic crowd, it is just made sure that it's medium spice and it's not too spicy. People, you would be surprised, but people can actually eat spicy food. I mean, some of them eat really spicy food, which we don't eat every day. you know um, yeah, I mean, the vindaloo we have, it's extremely hot. Whereas, yeah, it's again the UK Indian restaurant industry is slightly different. I mean, their dishes are very, very different from what we get in back home. Korma in India is not sweet. Korma in the UK is extremely sweet. But it is something. There are some dishes which you have to have on the menu. Whereas, yeah, like, say for instance, chicken tikka masala. Now that's a classic British curry. Apparently, it started in Birmingham. Or we or I rather have introduced our butter chicken as the chicken tikka masala. So in my restaurant, when you come in, well, we'll be serving you butter chicken as the chicken tikka masala. Now we all know butter chicken; it's lovely and it's fantastic, and you can't go wrong with it. I think well, everyone loves a good butter chicken. And so when we introduced that, it was like, wow, this is different. Because saying that, what they were getting served in other Indian restaurants was not the same. So when they came into us, we like, well, what's this? And so we tried to explain, well, this is our version of butter chicken. And that is, again, which we always had to constantly fight, is people were comparing our food with other restaurants' food. Um, you have to make them understand that no two chefs are the same. What he's cooking in that restaurant, you will not find it in mine, because obviously the chefs aren't the same. Okay, and this is what we want to serve as our dish. And again, coming from Mumbai or India, well, this is how we've grew up and tasted. This is the food that we grew up on, so we know what it tastes like, and this is what we want to serve you. And again, as I said, people appreciate that, because then they know the authenticity of it. They know, they follow you. So yeah, that does help. But yeah, coming back to the question with the chart, no, I've tried and served it as close to as we get back home. I've also well, I mean, in fact, it was even only last week that I did the vada pav, and I did that with the green chili and the fried chili with the salt and stuff. And same thing. Well, we had people who had never tried it. They were quite they were quite happy to try the chili. I mean, at first I thought they wouldn't. Okay, there were Indian friends with them, and that's why they said, okay, can we have this? And they asked them, do you want to try this? And tried with the chili, which I was quite surprised that they wouldn't try, but they did, and they actually enjoyed it. So yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Our next question is, how do you source out authentic Indian ingredients? Are they cost effective?
Well, now, as I said, well, when you are opening a business here, and you cannot compare the cost as you would have them in India. So you have your local suppliers. They bring in the ingredients, and you buy from them. So that is the market price. It is not something you cannot always say, well, in India I would get it at that price, because you have to come out of that saying, well, it's so cheap in India and it's so expensive. We have to consider that it has to be shipped, it has to be brought over, it had to be stored. Also, the company who is bringing it, they have to employ staff, so it has to pay for the wages for the staff. So there's a lot of effort and time and everything that goes behind that. So when you can buy something in the UK at that price, that is the price you have to buy it at. You cannot compare the pricing. You just have to then tweak your menu, and well, when you're doing your costings for your menu, you make sure that you incorporate that in it. And that is, and saying that, I mean, it's not that expensive. I mean, you would still, I mean, living on the island, you would think that things are more expensive because we get them shipped over, but they're not really that expensive compared to London. And saying that, things are still shipped over from India to London, and you will have to pay the market price. So all I do is, okay, you do keep an eye on your pricing, because that is very, very important when you're running a business, to see, how your price of your products are fluctuating, and what goes up, what goes down. But then when it comes to your ingredients and your spices and stuff, it's pretty generic. You just have to make sure when you're doing your costings right, that that is something that you always factor in.
Thank you, sir. We still have few more questions. And the next question is, what is the highest selling dish in your restaurant?
Right. Well, it is the chicken tikka masala.
All right. Uh, Thank you, sir. Next question is, what advice would you give to our budding entrepreneurs?
Right. Well, as I said, to begin with, always have consistency, always have the hard work, maintain your standards. Don't be complacent. I said, well, I've been here 7 years, and I'm still constantly thinking, well, what can I do next? What is it that will bring you, the customer, to my restaurant? So you have to think of the next step. you know well, now I said, well, I, what I'm looking at next year is, okay, after launching Street Kitchen, I want to then start curries and steaks banquets. That is something which people have, last year, this is before COVID, we did a lot of banquets, we did a lot of private events, we did fine dining events at people's home. We did tasting menus at people's home. So that is something which is another venture, I would say. So always keep looking out for different options of what you can do, how you can increase your business. Keep thinking. Don't be complacent. I said, if you think that, okay, well, you find, you're situated in a great spot, you're doing 400-500 covers a week, and it's great, it's brilliant. It only takes another good restaurant to come in and take business away. And then it's a knock-on effect, because once people start going somewhere else, it's the same thing. It's a small Isle of Man. It's a very, very small island. It's the word of mouth. People start talking, then more business goes to other places. So what keeps you different? What makes people come to you day in, day out? So what keeps us going is, as I said, we have always had the specials board. This week we done lobster momos, which is again unheard of on the Isle of Man. No one has ever tried them before. So it is something which is different. We introduced tandoori pomfret. It was something different. It's nothing that they would try unless they go to India. So they're not going to India. How do we bring India to them? That is what we thought. Yeah. So budding entrepreneurs, I would say that, okay, well, you have to constantly work hard. You have to be consistent. Do your market research. Try and find out what's happening. As I said to you, well, I've got around 8 Indian restaurants around me, and there's another around 60, 70 other restaurants and takeaways. Now, well, that's a lot of competition. That is and how do you survive in that, especially during COVID situation like this? You don't know when the situation is going to go away. You still have to run your business. Not to forget, your business is not just a business for you. I mean, of course, it's my baby because, it's been there for so long and I've nurtured it. At the same time, you're employing people. You are responsible for their livelihoods as well. Now, that is something which I always worry about. That, okay, well, it's just not me. How am I supposed to make sure that, we have a business that will pay the salaries for all these people because their livelihoods are based on your business. So, there's a lot of responsibility there. And for that, you have to constantly think of what you're going to do next. Speak to your professors, take advice from them. Anyone else that you can approach. People are quite happy to share their views, their experiences. They're not going to go out themselves unless someone asks them. So if you are not sure, just ask someone. Approach the restaurant, text them, email them. Someone will come back to you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was such a wonderful advice that you gave. Our next question says, will you please guide us about the finance and how you maintain the balance on income and expenditure?
Right now, that is very, very difficult. Now, that's an accountant's job, so you hire an accountant for that. Basically, well, you do what you can do on a day-to-day basis. So initially, cash flow is very important. And well, not initially, sorry, cash flow is important throughout. You always have to have that, maintain that cash in your account so that your bills are paid, your staff is paid, and everything's there. Obviously, there's a credit system which works everywhere. It's the same in India, where you get a credit for, say, 15 days, 30 days, from any supplier. But then at the same time, you find yourself an accountant who will keep the books tidy for you. So all you can do is just work as you do, do your banking regularly, and then try and get your accounts every 3 months or every couple of months to make sure what you have. Now, it is very easy because when the restaurant's new, when you start any new business, you always have like a honeymoon period. People always come in and try because it's new. And that is when, you will have a good amount of cash, or, you'll have nice takings for that matter. Does not mean you spend it all. Again, things change. There are winter months. Well, there are quiet months. Situations like COVID. In India now, well, in Mumbai, I know there's severe rainfall now. Well, there's the roads are flooded. You can't go anywhere. So restaurants won't survive now. So you have to make sure that you have something left for that rainy day fund. So it is very, very important to maintain your finances that way. You draw a basic wage, which is required. And then if you have anything excess at the end of maybe your first quarter or your next quarter, that is when you can take more out.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We have our next question, and it says, according to you, how do British prefer Indian cuisine over other options available?
Now, Britishers, they love Indian food. They say that they could literally have Indian every other night, which is true. They can. At the same time, they also love fish and chips. They also love their lasagna. They also love their roast dinners. But you will find that saying that, well, when we were setting up, why the name Croissant Steaks? Because there was always someone in the family who would be not keen on the spicy food, and that is why I thought of the steaks option. You will always find British people loving Indian food and going for. In fact, most of them go for very, very spicy Indian food. I don't eat that spicy food anymore, and I don't even like back home. Even back home, I don't think we ever did eat that spicy every day. You would have a dish, but then like some of my guests, they would have the spice. If you give them every other week, they would. I mean, we've had someone come into the restaurant 5 nights a week, and I swear to God, they've had the most hottest dish ever every single night. And I wouldn't do it 5 nights in a trot. I wouldn't. So yeah, people love it. People love it. The concepts, well, we think that, well, they might not like it, and is it always has to be sweet? And no, it doesn't have to be sweet. You can actually give them what we eat, and they would actually be fine with that.
Thank you, sir. Our next question says, which is the most popular preparation of your restaurant?
Preparation.
Yes, most popular preparation of your restaurant.
In what way? Sorry.
Uh, like as it's related to best-selling dish. So mostly preferred by most of your consumers or patrons who come to your restaurant. So
Yeah. So
what do
it's
they prefer the most? Which
so
dish?
but yeah. Again, when you're looking at, it's the makhni gravy, which you make for the tikka masala. That is obviously the most preferred dish. So that is literally done every second day. It's fresh, and yeah, I mean, and the chicken tikka that goes in it, that is again cooked to order. You know, most of the restaurants, they use they try and pre-cook the meals here, whereas ours is more a la carte. So then it is like how we have restaurant in India. When the order comes in, we start cooking. Okay, it does take a bit of time during service. You get used to it eventually, but then the quality and the end product, the juiciness in the kebabs and the tikkas is different. When you, as I said, when you're using the makhni gravies for only like a couple of days, it's really fresh. You can still, it's very, very fresh. It's extremely important when you're having so much competition to make sure that you stand out. You have to stand out in what you offer. And one of the things that we've always been complimented is, I mean, one of the ladies said to me that this is the best chicken tikka she's had outside India. So I was like, okay, well, that was really great, because it's good to know that you're doing something right. Yeah, I mean, not everyone, as Shruti said, not everyone says to you it's good, but a lot of people will say, and they will tell other people when it's bad. So you have to constantly make sure that you are doing your best and you are serving your 100%, because you're not always going to get that positive feedback back to you. But if you do miss that one time, 10 other people will follow, or they will know about it. So it is very important. So yeah, when saying that, it is the makhani gravy, and yeah, well, I'm not saying I get sick of it making it every second day, but it's just like, well, it's good to know that people appreciate it. It's something which people love, so then I love making it. If it yeah.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is, having stayed in UK for more than 15 years, you must have come across English dishes and how they are made. In the
Yes.
future, do you have plans of coming back to India and starting a restaurant that serves authentic English cuisine? Because the continental dishes, dishes that are served here are tweaked to serve Indian palate. So, would you like to share your thought on this?
Yes. Now, yes, I have learned a lot of English dishes. Yes. Coming back to India, well, yeah, I would love to. I mean, I'm not saying I've not thought about it, but it is very difficult. I mean, I have a family here. I've got my son who's 5. He started going to school. So I don't know if it would ever be possible to actually move back to India to start a restaurant, because if you're starting a business and a restaurant, something like that in India, not to forget, people are food critics. I cannot be here and have a restaurant there. I have to be there. So as I said, well, considering the family, I don't think I'll be able to do that. But saying that, yes, it is, I would love to. you know Again, people appreciate food in India. They love food and they know what it is. So to bring something back would be great. But it's not something that I would be doing in the near future. No. Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Uh, I'll, our next question is, your advice on how to focus and manage one's passion, work, and me time being so busy. So, how do you manage that?
Right now, yes. Now, as I said, well, that is very difficult. You have to literally have it going all the time. You have to be passionate in what you do. I mean, I'm very passionate about my food. Um, I'm very passionate about my service. Because that is what I do. I do not. I don't think I can do anything else because that is just what I've learned. I mean, I remember very well, and when I registered for Rizvi College, this is years ago. My best friend's dad, he came home, and he said to my parents, "So, is your son going to be a waiter?" So my parents really felt bad about it when uncle said that. So it was something which hurt them. And then I tried to explain them, it's okay, it's fine. I said, these things will come. But now when my parents look back, they're so proud that, well, good that you did. I said, well, mom, if I wasn't a waiter, I said I would have never been a food and beverage manager. I said, if I wasn't a food and beverage manager, I said I wouldn't have been a hotel manager. I said, so these things are needed. Okay. So again, saying that, you have to constantly think of what is going to happen, how you're going to excel yourself. You have to challenge yourself. You have to be your worst critic, I think. When you saying, well, what I'm going to do, how do I focus? I focus because I always question, is this right? What is the next best thing I can offer? That is my focus is always on what is my next best thing that I can offer. I follow a lot of chefs in India. I follow what they are doing. I try to then incorporate, because it's not always possible to get all the ingredients here, but you can always have your take on it, right? I mean, I'm not saying it will be the same dish as any other chef, but then again, you can have your own take and your own, because then it will give you can give your name to it. Yeah, I mean, that is what I feel, and and I focus on that. Saying that competition is too much, way too much. You cannot be complacent. I cannot just sit thinking, well, what's next? And that's why because curries and steaks, sorry, I never mentioned, but curries and steaks is only an evening operation. We're not open for lunch. It is something which the Isle of Man is not prepared or ready for. They're not ready for Indian food to be served during lunchtime and then going back to the offices with the flavor of the curry and everything. So then coming street kitchen is not Indian food as such. That's why I've kept the name generic, because it is going to be something which will be trying to incorporate Mexican dishes. We're going to try and incorporate some Japanese dishes. So it will be different. It will be flavors from all over the world, rather than saying it's just an Indian food. So yeah, focus has to come from within. It is how you push yourself, how you challenge yourself every day. You have to. I mean, yeah, I only sleep for 5 hours a day, because I'm always thinking of what the next restaurants open in town, what are they offering, you know, and when you're having a small business, it comes down to, well, what is their average spend? How much are you charging? How is their service compared to your service? So there is a lot to think about. When you're doing that, you have to do the same thing. Like, you have to always question these things. Well, okay, well, what are we going to do next? So when it come to me, I was like, right, after curries, what next? So curries had no scope for lunch. That's why we thought, right, the next thing for me would be street kitchen, where I can just do lunch and I can offer something which is different, you know.
Thank you, sir. And this is my question. So, could you please tell us what strategies did you use to promote Indian cuisine when you opened up your first venture?
Right. So when we opened up this, the biggest thing was, okay, well, being on the island, you can always go to local marketing firms. Like, you have lots of business magazines, you have small Manx Tales, which goes to every household here. So you actually give a nice article about yourself. I mean, in that I said what I've done. I've been on the island for. I mean, that time I'd been on the island for just over 10 years. So I said, my background. I was from Mumbai. I worked in Hyatt. So I made a small description about what I had done, what my experience was, and what I wanted to bring to the restaurant scene on the Isle of Man. So that is what we did with the local marketing to begin with. And then again, being a small place, it's word of mouth. People start talking. They're like, well, have you been to this new place? Well, and the other thing was the name. The name was different. People weren't sure why spell curries with a K. So they were like, well, they are different. So that's also gets them talking because you are different. So so you have to think of ways that you want people to talk about you. You have to make sure that they discuss you, whether they like it or not. They have to talk about you, and that is how the word spreads. See, they can not like you, but unless they try it out, okay, I might say, well, I don't like the restaurant to you, but unless you go and try it out for yourself, you don't know. Because you might have some other friend who will say, well, actually, I've been there, it's really good. Okay, they might not spell the name right, but actually they're doing the food right. So that is what it comes back with. So yeah, being here, it was the word of mouth which always helped. Social media presence only came in the last few years. 7 years ago it was there, but not so much. Not everybody was on social media. Not every restaurant was on social media. I think big chain restaurants were there, I think. But then saying that, I mean, again, saying that I was more concentrating on my day-to-day operation. Now I can take a step back and I can assess the whole situation. I can say, right, no, I need to do this. But when I was first opening, I was just concentrating on how I'm going to open and how I'm going to run the day-to-day operation. That time, okay, marketing was there in my mind, but then it was paid marketing through like agencies and radio channels and stuff. I never actually went to social media at a bit later stage, and that's when I started promoting more. Yeah.
So another question: how do you control cost when it is seafood? Basically, when you are serving seafood, generally seafood
Now,
is and
yes. Now,
cost control is very
yeah,
difficult.
seafood is very difficult. So you again, once you get the reputation that you serve good seafood, people come. So then when you bring in little portions and you have them on your specials board, that is what you do. Once it's sold. So you would have your generic dishes, which is your Goan fish curry and all, which is your day-to-day top seller. Which you can carry on, and which you always get a shelf life of couple of days. I mean, over here we are quite lucky that I can get a delivery 6 days of the week, if I want to. So and it's from the local fishmonger. He'll come in every morning. He'll drop it off as long as you place an order by 10 o'clock in the morning, which is great. As I said, well, we don't open till late afternoon. So we can always say that we have got the freshest seafood available. When it comes to something like lobster and stuff, you always make sure there's only a couple of, again, hello?
Hello.
Sorry. Yeah. So when it comes to lobster and stuff, you make sure that they're live and they can be cooked to order. So when
Yes.
when someone and they can stay alive in the fridge for up to 3 days, 4 days time, as long as the temperature is controlled, they are fine.
So would you like?
Of the controlling of seafood and all, it is easy once you, and I think after a while, once you know your customer base and once you know what is selling, you kind of gauge that. you know it's like we're about coming back to the makhani gravy. You're going to sell every second day and you got to make it. There is no option. So that is what you do. You prepare it for every 2 days, and that that it is going to be sufficient enough.
This is my question and last question. So, as you mentioned that you use scallops and lobster, so could you give us one example or a dish which is where you infused Indian food or like flavors with scallop? Because getting
Oh,
scallops in India is little, or
it is right. Now the scallops in Indian and Inspire is a very, very simple. I mean, all literally, I did not play with it too much. There is no need, because the dish itself has got so much flavor. The product itself, scallops alone, you have to do nothing as long as you just sear it properly on both the sides, little bit of salt and pepper, and you can have that. And the scallops will be sweet and it's great. Now, all I did was just have little bit of our green chutney, with coconut. Yeah, and I saute that off and I add it to the scallops. You don't, again, with seafood, you try not experiment too much. You know, don't forget, you don't want to overpower the seafood. You don't want people to come away saying, well, that only taste of curry. Though I couldn't taste the actual seafood. Now you have to be very, very careful when you do pairing these things. With the lobster, I've done tandoori lobster tail, and then again with the claws and the knuckles and stuff, I use that in a biryani. So then again the whole tail was slice, just cut at the bottom. So make sure it stands straight. Put it on a skewer, cooked in the tandoor. And then I said the claw and the knuckles and other bits I used in the biryani, and then that is how I present it. So yeah, when you're using seafood with spices, sometimes it doesn't take a lot to do. You don't want to take away the actual flavor of the seafood. You know, something like scallops is absolutely amazing. I think, I mean, in India when I was there, I don't think we had scallops that time. Like 17 years ago, it was not even heard of. Okay, we had oysters and stuff was there. That was different. But then when we came here and when we looked at it, and when I tried it for the first time, it was just like wow. And even these people, like the British restaurants here, they served it in the most simple way possible. They would not play with it too much. Something it is. It can also be served raw. I mean, as a ceviche for that matter. So yeah, it's very very easy. So yeah, don't worry.
Thank you so much, sir. And I would like to, I would just check, we do not have any other questions. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for being there with us. I would like to extend a very hearty word of thanks to you, sir, on behalf of all the participants and organizing committee. Thank you so much for a wonderful session, and I'm sure all your encouraging words will help our budding entrepreneurs to develop and for the development. Also, as you rightly mentioned, leave your mark with hard work, dedication, and consistency, which are the key elements of for anybody to be successful. Once again, I thank you so much for giving us your precious time for being there with us, and thank you, sir.
No, thank you very much for having us. And if again, if any students want to have interact or have further questions, please, you can always ping us at Curries and Steaks. We are on Facebook. Do not hesitate. Anyone, I mean, I'm quite happy to share more information, more advice anytime. No problem. Thank you. Thank you again.
Also,
Thank
sir,
you.
sorry, yes, ma'am.
No, I just wanted to say thank you. And has Seema been attending this session?
Well, no. Well, Seema is actually at work. I did ask her if she was going to, but Seema's at work. Now, saying that, well, obviously Seema is from your college, and
Yes.
Seema has played a very important role as well in setting up these places. Now, again, it's not possible without Seema. Yeah. I was also working in the hospitality industry for a long time, and she only jumped into private sector probably around 10 years ago. But then saying that, it did not stop her from helping me out. In fact, in Curries initially, because initially when we opened up, it was all hands on deck. Every single night we both were working. It's six days a week. We had a day off, and then only when we started the family that she's gone back to full time, just the office work, whereas I look after the businesses. She still has a lot of input at the ice cream parlor because it's very, very different to run. It's more casual. It does not have the same. It's very informal because it's on the beach. Kids are there. It's a happy place. The weather's nice. People are enjoying the sun. They're coming in for an ice cream. So that is what Seema looks after during summertime, and whereas I look after Curries full time.
Okay.
But I will pass on. I'll pass on your message as well to Seema. I will definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, I did ask her, but she's working.
Okay. All the best to the both of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Before we sign off, there is a very popular Facebook request that we have from our students, and they would like to have your Instagram ID so that they can connect to you. So,
oh yes, sure. It is at Curries and Steaks.
At Curries and Steaks, for
Yes,
sure.
Curries is spelled with a K.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I still can't spell it right, so please follow. And yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to see what we do. I mean, yes, there are some dishes that we do. There are some dishes on Instagram. There are some dishes on Facebook page that you will see that I've done and we've created. You need more information, please let us know. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Before we conclude the session, participants, please note the session for tomorrow will start at 10 a.m. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks
Signing
again.
off.
Bye-bye.
You have a good day ahead. Bye.
You too. Take care.